So this is my TL1109 synoptic Viva based on the video lesson that I submitted. The first question one is, what do you think the strong elements of your video were and why? Starting off, my video was based on a warm-up. The warm-up was called Counting to 7 While Jumping to Heaven. In this video, I had 7 different elements or fundamental movements that the people at home or people watching the video, students could watch along and copy what I was doing. So it was a bit easier for them to do. I demonstrated every single movement and every different fundamental movement possible. So like I say, my warm-up had 7 different activities. I think the best thing about my warm-up or the video was the fact that every single different movement we had that I taught, it all accumulated and rhymed with something else. So we had 7 different elements. So number 1 was on the run. Number 2 was on the shoot. Number 3 was on the knee. Number 4 was on the floor. Number 5 was alive. Number 6 was tricks. And number 7 was heaven. So each different number rhymed with the movement or made it simple. So if you're saying number 1 was on the run, you know, they were running on the spot. Number 2 was on the shoe. They were touching the shoe. And I feel as if this was a really strong part of my video because it was easier for people to follow along at home. Another strong part about my video was the fact that I introduced, I made it clear from the start that it was important that students must exercise, and I made it clear that we are required to do at least 60 minutes of exercise per day. I think this was another strong part in my video. And then in the video as well, in the lesson, I requested that the people watching or students could challenge themselves to their ability. I was never strong part of the video was I was never trying to push the students to their full ability because it was only the warm-up, so it was bound to lead on to the next lesson, like the main part of the lesson. So I put a challenge in there saying you can make it as hard or as hard as you want it to be, but obviously you can push yourself to a limit. You can. And then I had like six different elements, 7 different elements, 6 different jumps, which led on to the main lesson. And then that made it easier for then Alex when he was doing his main lesson. If this was a real life lesson in a sports hall or in a school facility or around them thing, it was easy for the students to carry on. So you would have gone straight from the warm-up, which was mine doing the different jumps, into the main lesson, which was focused on jumping, different styles of jumping and how we can use jumping in a game or a life situation. Question 2, on reflection, how well did you incorporate each of the 3 strands? So PE, healthy lifestyles and social cultural. And then it says, what might you have done differently? Give reasons for this. So I feel as if I incorporated the 3 strands quite well. So I incorporated the PE strand by understanding and mentioning the fact that exercise is we need to do exercise. So I mentioned in my video that you have to do 60 minutes of exercise a day, and I made that pretty clear to the students watching. I introduced the healthy lifestyles again by introducing the fact that we need to exercise and we need to keep active, and we need to keep active. Then it says so I introduced the healthy lifestyles, social. The only problem is that in my video I didn't feel as if I introduced social cultural enough. So I think differently I probably would have introduced social cultural. So how we would have been, how we used or how humans use jumping in everyday life. So why is jumping a fundamental movement? We can do what I'm trying to say is if this was in my lesson, I would to improve on it, I would try and make sure that students knew why we'd use jumping in everyday life, so that's a fundamental movement. Something else I would have changed differently in the lesson, just to make it a bit easier for the students, is I didn't offer any opportunity for children with different abilities with it. So I just presumed in my lesson that students would be able to jump. Obviously, this being a jumping lesson, I've not taken into consideration that there could have been other students. There could have been other students that maybe not being able to jump, but yeah, that's another thing I would have improved and changed differently in my lesson. Moving on to question 3, it says, based on the knowledge you have gained this year, how might this impact your future practice? So I feel strongly that this year I've learned quite a lot. It's definitely changed my views on teaching and the physical education side of teaching. Firstly, I'd say that the teacher standards I've made it something I've learned this year is the teacher standards, which is going to impact my future practice 100%, because it's made me realise that there's so many different standards that teachers have to reach and have to understand to become a full professional teacher. So obviously the teacher standards, learning stuff like professional responsibilities and fulfilling those professional responsibilities by just other stuff, like, so making positive contributions to my lessons and making sure that every student is accounted for, and making sure that every student, every person in the lesson is involved and they're all getting the most out of the lesson. Like I said, the teacher standards has helped me obviously realise, and the PE sport and PE courses for the first year has made me realise that you have to adapt the lessons, and I have to adapt your sessions to everyone's needs, to everyone's abilities. And I'm going to take this forward to my future practice, because now I know what I've learned from this year is I've realised that every student needs to be accounted for, and every student needs to be catered for. Everyone's needs to be catered for. And another thing that I've strongly this year that I believe that I've realised is that assessment is key. Before coming and doing the course, I wasn't aware how assessment could affect and how positive it is for a PE teacher. So moving on for my professional development and moving on for my future practice, I definitely say one of the main thing I would take forward is assessment. I was never aware of how strong and how assessment could affect the lesson, but now I realised how much assessment means in the PE teaching world. And I feel as if that's one thing another thing I'm going to take forward. Another thing that I feel as if I've learned in the first year is I've definitely become more confident in teaching in front of especially bigger students and bigger number classes. I'm used to working with younger children, and that's where I'd come from before I'd come to university. Before I come to university, I was working with younger children between the ages of 2 to 5. I was used to that. And what's made me realise is that you're not always going to get the perfect class. You're not always going to get the perfect students. You're not always going to get the most amazing people in the world. Obviously, the most amazing students in the world. You're gonna have challenges, and if anything, the first year has taught me that you've got to keep a level head and realise that PE teaching is not going to be the easiest thing in the world. It's gonna take a lot, and the first year has made me realise that the students that I'm going to teach are not going to be the students that I want them to be. So me being able to adapt and work around the children's needs to make my lessons work for everyone is something I'm definitely going to take forward to future practice, as I feel as if that's going to make me a better teacher.